Today we sit down with Pete Mohr, a Business Made Simple certified coach and also the owner of Simplifying Entrepreneurship. Today we talk about the Venn diagram that Pete has created, where the circles of mindset, momentum, and mastery come together to form clarity, confidence, and community, and an empowered entrepreneur. We also talk about his SYSTEM acronym that Rich and I had never heard before, where SYSTEM stands for Saves You Stress, Time, Energy, and Money. We hope you enjoy this episode with Pete Mohr. Pete, thanks for joining us today on Entrepreneurs United podcast. We look forward to learning a little bit more about you, your entrepreneurial background, and specifically really want to jump into simplifying entrepreneurship. It sounds really simple as a concept, and I can't wait to dive a little bit more into that. Can you talk to us maybe a little bit before you get to that? How did your entrepreneurial roots start? And what have you done over the last few years entrepreneurially?
Well, where does it start? We don't have 20, some years because it started way back then. I mean, I'm 50 years old and I literally have only worked for somebody else on a full-time basis for about 6 months of my life. So I had, the high school businesses and university businesses in the summer and stuff like that, cutting grass and doing landscaping and all that kind of thing. And then went to work briefly for my dad's best friend, actually, and loved his business and loved, that sort of thing. But during that 6 months that I worked for him, I realized that, working for somebody else just wasn't for me. And so I branched out, bought a franchise, when I was 23 and got into bathroom renovations and refinishing bathtubs and bathtub liners and wall systems and did that for about 15 years and sold it. And during that time, I also bought another poorly operated franchise, which was a cleaning franchise, and grew that from 30 businesses that we serviced to 300 businesses that we serviced, and sold it. And then I became a business broker and helping other people buy and sell businesses, where I found one of the businesses that I still own today. We own some shoe stores called Shoetopia here in Ontario. And from that perspective, that's where I get to test and try a lot of my stuff for simplifying entrepreneurship. And I've got a few other businesses too. But simplifying entrepreneurship just kind of came around a few years ago where, I've always been in the position where I just love business, everything about it. And, most of the people that are, I hang around, they're always coming to me and saying, hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I might as well turn this into a business. So I did that a few years ago, became a business coach, and I'm a certified business coach with Business Made Simple right now. But I have created a lot of my own tools and frameworks and different things. And, in the 2-minute take, that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
Well, it's interesting because when you think about franchising, and Rich is in the franchising business as well. Part of the reason you go into franchising is because the franchisor has made things simple. The systems are simple. Follow the step. Do 1, do 2, do 3, and this is the way it works. Is it possible that you took a lot of those concepts of your success in franchising to traditional business in terms of simplifying a business system?
I mean, the systems and frameworks. I mean, one of my coaches, Joel Weldon, who's a speaking coach, love his framework. And I don't know that this is his, but I was introduced to it by him. The word system and the acronym for it. S saves you. You got to think of it now. Systems saves you stress, time, energy, and money. Saves you stress, time, energy, and money. When we look at franchises, if you're a new guy, and Rich, I think you're with CertaPro, am I correct? Yeah. So, I mean, I was in the painting business for 15 years, coating and spraying. I wielded a spray gun for a long time. So, from that perspective, I totally get coatings and paints and all the things around that, in and out of people's homes, all of that sort of stuff. From that perspective, I got a certain amount of training from my franchisor, which was, looking back, I'm like, holy cow, how did I ever stay alive? as a 23-year-old kid coming back, flew down to Atlanta, had a week sort of, here's your spray gun, here's your stuff, let's go, get to it, and then about a week's worth of business training. But I already had a business degree, so I didn't really need that side of things as much. But then it's like, okay, let's go. We were coming back and we're on our own. And, there was a lot of people that failed in that franchise. And there was a bunch of things that went wrong. So I learned a lot of stuff with franchising around that side of things too. What I would look for again, what I wouldn't look for again. The franchise system was sold 3 times in 5 years, and there was 3 different owners. So there was all kinds of change. And it was one of those things. I ended up defranchising that business. But, from that perspective, I made a good business out of it. And that was in 1994. And today, as we're talking at the end of 2021, although I sold the business 11 years ago, that business still is going strong today, and it's as strong as it ever was with the new owner, and doing well. So, I got some of the basics that I need to get me through, because I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to hold a spray gun. I didn't know how to put in a bathtub liner and wall
Yep.
systems and stuff like that. So I got those fundamentals, and that was enabling me to go out. But as far as how do I earn the business, how do I get all that other stuff, that was really just up to me to dig through a lot of that stuff. And I know every franchise is different, and they set that stuff up for you in different ways. But yeah, there was a ton of learning through that. And my cleaning company was a franchise business
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
My current businesses aren't, but from that perspective, I certainly am not against franchises at all. You just need to be in the right ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Rich, I had never heard of the acronym system. Saves you stress,
No,
time, energy, and money. Had you?
no,
Yeah.
no. I love it. Got
It's
a
a great
note on
one.
it.
It's a great one.
I'm curious, Pete, where does simplifying entrepreneurship pick up? Because you described some of the hard skills in the field, like you had not held a sprayer and didn't know how to install something.
Yeah.
Uh, what is the service that you provide in your company now in simplifying entrepreneurship?
Okay. So with this business, I'm a coach. I'm a business coach. So I actually work with some franchisees right now. And I also work with a lot of independent businesses, but I work with entrepreneurs essentially. And I guide them through I call it take their frustrations and turn them into freedoms, setting up, working through some of the things that enable you to create a turnkey business so that you're working more on your business and not in your business. And some of those systems and frameworks and all of those things are the things we work with. Now, I told you I was a Business Made Simple certified coach. So whether you're familiar with Business Made Simple and Story Brand and a lot of the stuff from Donald Miller that's put out there, we use some of that concepts and frameworks and things around creating your story and your mission and your brand and all of that sort of stuff, and funnels and wireframing websites and different things like that. I also use the stuff that I've created, which is more on the execution and management side of things, and working through, what you want out of your life. Because as entrepreneurs, we get into business because we want to have a better life. And we need to set up our businesses to actually deliver that. So many entrepreneurs that I talk to, Rich, it's like they're 10 years down the road and they're looking back saying, what the heck just happened here? I missed my kids growing up. I missed the family vacations. I've been working 70 hours a week, but I got into business 10 years ago because I wanted a better life. Maybe I have more money now, but is that a better life?
Yeah, powerful. How many businesses do you own now? So you named 2. You have Simplifying Entrepreneurship. You have Business Made Simple. What else do you own now?
Yeah, I don't own Business Made Simple. So Simplifying Entrepreneurship is mine.
Okay,
And then I am a Business Made Simple coach. Business Made Simple
got
is a
it.
different business. That's
Got it.
Donald Miller. Okay. So, but Simplifying Entrepreneurship is my coaching business. And then I have a couple that have been on hiatus because of COVID. So I
Sure.
have one called Liquidation Roadshow. And from that perspective, we roll around and do a variety of different liquidation shows. We'll rent an arena floor, bring in, do some bunch of marketing, bring in a whole bunch of people, do a big liquidation show for, 3 days on a weekend or whatever, and then move out of town, move to another town and do it over there with a bunch of retailers and vendors. But it's something just due to the capacity limits and a lot of that sort of stuff we haven't been able to do for the last couple of years. And then I just had another one through COVID too called Sani Mist. And Sani Mist, we've just put that one to bed. It was a pop-up business, but basically it was selling foggers and spray systems and all sorts of stuff around that as well, because that's my background in my previous business, Sani Service, that I had for 10 years. I did a lot of that through SARS and everything back in the 90s and 2000s. So I was familiar with that. So we popped that up during the onset of COVID and ran that really until a month or two ago. We just closed that, but I knew it was going to be a pop up. So from those kind of perspective, it's like, let's pop it up, get the marketing rolling, do what we're going to do. And then you got to know when to shut her down too. And the same thing with Liquidation Roadshow. It's like, hey, we can't do these right now. It doesn't mean that we're not going to pop it back up at another time. And I like this idea of being able to sort of inject different businesses depending on the season of entrepreneurship, really.
So right now, you're really focusing on simplifying entrepreneurship. That's your main gig as of now. Although it sounds like you're a serial entrepreneur and you're always looking at businesses, particularly going back to when you were a business broker, always evaluating, kind of open to buying and selling stuff. So in your coaching side, I'm curious, like I want to have the moment where I just kind of lean in and I'm like, Pete, give me the secret.
Yeah.
How do I do this? What would a secret be that typically only your clients get? That's the good stuff.
Well, I've already kind of hinted at it. And I start most of my relationships, Rich, with really truly digging down into what that entrepreneur wants out of life. And to me, that is so often missed when you start a business, because you're just like, okay, I need more clients. I got to get going. It's like, okay, and you get in this framework of just more and more and more and more and more, and keep going, keep going, keep going. And you kind of, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that don't actually sit down and figure out, what do I want out of this? Right. So for me, that's where it all begins, Rich. It all begins with truly understanding what you want out of your life. And then we go back and make the changes we need to make within the business in order to get there. And, some of those changes are big. A lot of entrepreneurs are, they've got themselves in a position where they truly feel that they can't release. They can't release accountability to anyone else. They think they need to know every single little thing. They need to know it because if they don't know it, their clients are going to think they're stupid. Their team's going to think they're stupid. Their suppliers are going to think they're stupid because they don't have an answer to an individual small question. Well, when you start releasing accountability and you start working through some of these things and having other people work towards the common goal of delivering your promise to your clients, then other people have the answers, and it's okay that they have the answers, because that's what's freeing you up so that you can continue to work on other things on your business that are going to help you align the business to give you back what you want out of your life.
Yep. Pete, I noticed in looking up simplifying entrepreneurship that you have this Venn diagram that goes along with the title of your company. And can you usually it may answer to the question you just talked about, but usually when I see a Venn diagram, it's how do you find this perfect center of three circles? And does that fit into what do entrepreneurs want out of their life and out of their business? Does that play a part in simplifying entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, in the middle of that, in the heart, I call this the heart model. In the heart, and that's why, I've got the three circles, but it kind of looks like a heart. And from that perspective, right in the heart is called the empowered entrepreneur, because that's what people want. They want the power to make their own choices. They want the power to have their business run for them and give them back their life. But around that, you need to have clarity, confidence, and community. And those are those three things that are most tightly knit into the heart of the business. And when I mean by that, nothing happens. And I've got another one there called the Wheel of Momentum too, John.
Okay.
And that one, goes around some different things. But from this one, it's everything starts with clarity. Rich, you were
Okay.
saying like what's the secret? Well, the secret of simplifying entrepreneurship is to pull everything down in a framework that provides you clarity.
Okay. So let me make sure I got this correct. The Venn diagram has three circles:
Yeah.
clarity, confidence, community.
Yeah.
And where those three meet is the empowered entrepreneur.
Right.
Okay.
And then surrounding those, when you look at it,
Yep.
because the three come in, you've
Yes.
got mindset, momentum, and mastery.
Okay. So try me one more time. Where do those? Oh, okay. I think I see. So the three circles are mindset.
Mindset, momentum, and mastery. And then the inner side is clarity, community, and confidence. And that's where they blend in.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand.
Yeah.
So if you were to walk me through, is because Rich asked a very interesting question, right? Which is, what is the secret sauce
Yeah.
to simplifying entrepreneurship and
Yeah.
what you provide? It seems to me that understanding a little bit more about this Venn diagram would be a good thing. And then you mentioned wheel of momentum. So maybe we need
Yeah.
to bring that back, because
Yeah.
what I think you're saying here is if you have the right mindset, you're in the right space, you get this momentum that just gives you the confidence and gives you the clarity and helps you achieve that empowerment that you're talking about. But can you tell me maybe a little bit more about these three circles? And if we were doing an abbreviated 30-minute coaching session here, how
Yeah.
would you talk to Rich and I about how do we make sure we're mastering these three?
So, I mean, all of the tools that I've created with simplifying entrepreneurship fit into one of these 6 areas.
Okay.
So when we talk about momentum, I've got the wheel of momentum, and I've got a whole framework around the wheel of momentum that kind of pulls out the stuff that you need in order to get momentum. When we talk about mastery, it's about the mastering of all those different things. But, you can't have mastery if you don't have the confidence. And that's why that confidence is in between momentum and mastery, right? Because in order to build that capability and the confidence and all that sort of stuff, you need to build that. And it's just blended together. The mastery and the mindset thing is the community that you have within all the people that your team, your outsource partners, your coaches, the people that you look up to, your mentors, all that sort of stuff. That's that community. And how are you building the community to build your mastery, to build your mindset so that you can feel empowered, right?
Yep.
How are you working on the momentum, and what are you doing for momentum through confidence? Because if you don't have confidence, there's no momentum.
Sure.
If you don't feel it, it's not gonna roll for you, right?
Yeah.
The clarity, you need to have the clarity between the mindset and the momentum. The clarity is where everything begins. And when you're surrounding yourself with all of these things, and like I said, with all the different tools and all the different conversations that we have, it really flows in together, so that ultimately, as we're sort of pressing in with these different tools and creating all of this stuff, it's like I'm feeling good, I'm feeling better, I feel the momentum, the stuff's happening, I can see it happening, because we're using planners, we're using systems, we're knowing ahead what we're trying to do, because we know what we want the business to be for our lives.
Yes.
It all happens sort of in succession, and it takes some time. This stuff
Yeah.
doesn't happen overnight. Like, I've been in
doubt.
business a long time, and it takes a long time to build some of these things. Now, some of the things are quick wins,
Yeah.
and that's great. But some of the things you're always working on, you're always just you're trying to build that community, right? You're trying to build that confidence. Everything that's new, once you work around the wheel of momentum, which is this other model, once you get to the top again, you're back into clarifying what that creative spot is. You're feeling good. You gain the capacity, the cooperation and collaboration with your team and with others, and you're working through this wheel. And up at the top, now you're feeling so good about it. You got the juices flowing. You're starting to be creative again, because you can't be creative if you don't feel confident, if you don't feel you have the capacity, if you don't feel like you have cooperation. You can't be that creative person. So once you're back up to creativity and you start thinking about what could be, then you go back to clarity and it happens again.
Yep. So it's interesting because it brings us back full circle, no pun intended, to the circles here.
Yeah.
To, how you answered Rich's question, which is, it starts with clarity.
Yeah.
You need to have clarity on why you're an entrepreneur to begin with. And you're right. A lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, I've been there, wake up 10 years later going, what am I like? Why did I do this? And what am I really trying to accomplish? Is it growing for the sake of growing, or what am I trying to do? And, when you think about clarity, Rich taught me something very well as we've been doing these podcasts for well over a year now, which is, when you have a guest on, your eyes automatically go to that one book in their bookshelf that's turned over. And you see, Rich, what's that book that you see? Do you see the same one I see?
Yeah, The Eighth Habit.
Okay. I saw one. I saw a different one.
Yeah.
I don't know what The Eighth Habit is, so that's why
I don't know either, but I know what one is.
Yeah.
What is it?
The one thing, and I'm assuming that's turned around for a reason, specifically to when you're doing your coaching or talking to people about, do they have clarity on their one thing? What are they doing?
It's one of them. I mean, I just, because I'm on Zoom a lot and stuff like that, I flip different ones over depending on, and I run a book club. So depending on what I'm doing for my book club every month, I always have that one flipped over. So, from that perspective, I like to have them back there, and I source them for sure, because the stuff that I teach and coach along the way, I pull from all of this stuff that I've learned over my career. And you know what? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a ton of good stuff there. And it's just knowing when to inject those things and those tools and those readings and those things, whenever you're coming up against a problem that you're trying to work through, whether it's yourself or whether, in my case, it's with a client of mine. It's like, okay, we need to grab something from Traction, for example, from Gino Wickman, and let's institute an accountability chart, which I really like that framework from Traction, right? And I might say, let's talk about the one thing, because we need to know what our priorities are. Or with Business Made Simple, some of the stuff around Business Made Simple. Hug Your People is the blue one that you see back here, which is a great book about team building and all of that sort of stuff. So just depending on where people are, again, we don't need to recreate the wheel on a lot of this stuff. There's all kinds of great concepts and things out there. And yes, do I create my own? I do too. But a lot of the stuff is there, and being able to pull from some of these resources just makes the business a whole lot, the conversation more rich. Sure. And if people want to dig down, then they can dig down deeper.
I have a question for you on the community part, because between the clarity and confidence and community, I feel like clarity, I generally know what that means. If you and I gave independent definitions, they'd probably be 70% aligning. Confidence, same thing, like 70% aligning. What do you mean by community, and why is that important enough to be named in your model?
Well, I have another whole framework called the 4 Ps, and the 4 Ps is transforming your frustration into freedom. Okay. And those 4 Ps, I'll give them quickly to you. It's just another framework around it, but it's having the right product. Okay. And there's a whole thing in behind that, having the right process or systems, right? Having the right people or community, and then having the right profit. And from that perspective, if you can align all those 4 Ps, then you've got a turnkey business. But when we look at community, I look at, call it community, call it people. In this case, I was looking for a C word, so I called it community. And in the other model, I was looking for a P word, so I call it people. But from that perspective, who are the people around your business that make that business what it is today? So first of all, who's your ideal client? Who are you working for, and what's the promise you're delivering? Who's your team? Who's your ideal team person? And I mean, I think these days we can call outsource partners team members as well. Everybody's working remotely and pulling in VAs and all this sort of stuff. But really, who is that person? Who's the ideal person that's going to help you deliver that promise? And I think you can frame these all in different ways. And I'll show you another framework right after I get to this next one, which is, who are your outsourced, who are your, in my case with the shoe companies, my suppliers, right? All the different brands that I'm buying footwear from. and so that I can deliver to my clients. And so now I know who my ideal clients are, that people portion or community portion. I know who my team is, the community around how I'm going to deliver the promise. And I know who some of those outsource partners are for certain service companies, or for me as a retailer, my wholesalers type thing, but the other people that are involved. And once you do that, the greatest way to do it is to put them all on a chart. And from that perspective, we can all name, if you want to do it right now, or if people are listening to the podcast, stop the podcast for a second, draw a line down the center of the page. Who's your worst ever client? Who's your best ever client? Who's your worst ever team member? Who's your best ever team member? Who's your worst ever supplier? Who's your best ever supplier? That's where you start.
And what do you do from there?
Yeah. And then you're writing down underneath them all of the things, the reasons why they're the worst and the best. You're just brainstorming and you're saying, oh yeah. And the names of them. All the people in between, you might forget names and stuff like that. But I can tell you, you probably can remember your worst ever employee's name and your best ever employee's name, or customer or supplier. So you're aligning all those things, and then you're really doing a dashboard of 1 to 10 as to where because now you're going to take everybody else and put them into the dashboard and rate them 1 to 10, and why the frameworks around why they are who they are and what you're looking for. You build that dashboard out. And when you start building that dashboard out, you can build the community that you want and the community that you don't want.
This is similar to the people analyzer from Traction.
Yeah, it is. I mean, from a people, I forgot about the people analyzer, but I think is people analyzer the one that they use called Get It, Want It, and Capable.
And they'll go through and they'll start with core values, and they'll have other things that you would like to have in your culture and the people who are in it.
Yeah,
and you just kind of go through and put a plus or a minus by each area of the person. And that is used in a selection process. It's used in performance reviews. It's used in, weekly accountability sessions. Just what are they working on to become, in Pat Lencioni's terms, the ideal team player, customized for your business.
Right.
So it sounds like what you're recommending is something very similar to that, which is very cool.
But I do that for not only for my team members, because we absolutely do that for my team members. I align the same sort of thing. We call it, your key characteristics and your critical actions. I align those with my when we do assessments, like when we do quarterly assessments and all that other stuff, the same sort of thing. And we align those, of course, to the hiring process and all that sort of stuff. But I think the bigger takeaway here is that, that's what you do for your team, but you should be doing it for your clients, and you should be doing it for anyone else, like any of your outsourced partners and all of the suppliers and all that other stuff, just the very same.
So I have another question on this, your 3Ms, the mindset, momentum, and mastery. And it's similar to just kind of scratching my head on one of them. On mindset, I'm like, I could see how that's a really deep, rich topic, right? Lot to talk about. And I'm like, momentum. Yeah, you have the momentum, the wheel of momentum, and kind of have that nailed. And I kind of look at mastery and I'm like, oh, okay, another model that says be a master at what you do. Okay, got it. Like, can you dig down underneath that? Like, why is that an equally rich principle as mindset and momentum?
Well, my main clients are leaders. I mean, I only work with leaders. So I work with the entrepreneurs. I don't really work with management teams and stuff like that. I work with the owners. And for that reason, you need to have the ability to master ownership, master entrepreneurship, master communication, master leadership, master all of these things that drive the business while you have other people managing the business. And I think from that perspective, I'm not talking I didn't put management down here. I put mastery down here. And management's a different nut, And yes, can I speak to management and all that sort of stuff? Absolutely can. But what I'm talking about here, and what my models are for, and the work that I do is with entrepreneurs. And for them, they're at a different level, they're at a leadership level. And from that perspective, I really consider mastery a leadership term as opposed to a management term.
That's cool. So it is rich because you're looking at mastery as just multiple layers, like identifying and having clarity on what is it you need to master.
Yep.
And by the way, don't dabble in whatever that is. Be a master at what that is.
That's
Yeah,
the goal. Yeah.
yeah. So I can see how that does have a similar level of depth. Thanks for that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I also love, this maybe coming back all the way back around to you talked about how you really want to help entrepreneurs work on their business, not in their business.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when Rich was asking that question about mindset, momentum, mastery, I was thinking, master how to use the paint sprayer, master how to use, in my mind, I was thinking technically master the product or service you're doing. And you came back with the response, no, it's not that. It's master being an entrepreneur. It's master learning how to lead. It's master how to hug your people and love your people and communicate. And it's mastering those things help you become a better entrepreneur. Yeah. It seems to me too, Pete, that you found somewhat of a secret component here for yourself that you're also trying to bring to other entrepreneurs, which is the ability to be an entrepreneur and work on businesses, not necessarily be the operator or manager in the business.
Yeah.
So if I think about the shoe business, liquidation business, the mist business,
yep.
Different businesses, is that a fair statement? And do you work with entrepreneurs in terms of helping them build succession even within their own businesses so that they can become the chairman of their business versus the manager of it?
Well, in essence, that's what a turnkey business is. So, or at least how I perceive it to be.
Okay.
So from my perspective, I was in my shoe stores yesterday. I was working on the floor selling shoes yesterday. But for the most part, that's something I rarely do because I'm never scheduled. I was yesterday because it's Christmas time and there's people taking off and there's some things. But, for the most part, I'm very rarely ever scheduled to work a shift in our stores. And that allows me the flexibility and freedom to do all sorts of it. Do I go to the stores? Absolutely, I go to the stores. Am I involved in the stores? Yes, I am. But when I practice what I preach, and the stuff that I do is I've set up the accountabilities in my store so that when I went to the store yesterday, the assistant manager who was working with me was my boss. I was there as a salesperson. And I said to her name's Jasmine, I said, "Hey, Jazz, what do you need me to do today? Where do you need me to pitch in? What do you tell me what needs to be rebunked. Tell me what needs to be, fixed up. Tell me, you're the boss." On the accountability chart that we were chatting about that day, I'm just filling the salesperson position. I'm not Peter, the boss. I'm Peter, the salesperson. And so I live that. I'm in there and I'm saying, okay, you're the boss of me right now. So tell me what you need me to do and I will do it. Right. Yeah. And from that perspective, when you have those accountabilities laid out within your business, you have to act that way when you're there too, because you're there to fill this position. And if I was out spraying a tub, Rich, or painting a wall or doing some outside service, and the service manager was there, and I was coming in there because they were shorthanded that day, I would say to the service manager or whoever was there looking after that particular job, "What do you need me to do?" Because ultimately, that's the job that I'm there for that day.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is servant leadership, which is what you've mastered yourself in entrepreneurship, right? Why is it so hard though for entrepreneurs to take themselves out of "it's my company, I'm the boss" role and become the sales rep or the chef or the janitor if they need to, whatever they need to do in their business, and remove themselves from being the owner? What is so difficult about that with entrepreneurship in your mind, or entrepreneurs?
Well, that's mindset. I mean, that's the mindset, right? So it's understanding how and communicating the vision of your business. And a big part of what I do when I start off that kind of framework with my clients is we work through, for the most part, we work through what I call guiding principles. And those guiding principles are things like that. It's why is it hard? And what do we need to get through in order to do that sort of stuff? And we talked a little bit about the fact that most entrepreneurs don't want to release.
Yep.
They don't want to release authority. But you can't have a turnkey business. You can't leave your business with somebody else. Like, I'll put it back into the retail framework. The old owners that used to own Shootopia, it was a couple. They basically never left the store. It was either one or the other of them that would work the entire week.
Yep.
And they got one day together, which was the day the store was closed. And other than that, one or the other was there because they didn't trust anybody, and all this other stuff. But from my side of things, it's like, I'm perfectly good with setting up the accountabilities, the dashboards, all of the things that I need as a leader, so that I can make the decisions, see things are working properly, but allowing others to make those decisions. And my feeling is that I want the decisions to be made at the very lowest level, not at the highest level.
That's right.
Every decision should be made at the very lowest level it can be made. And we need the systems to do that.
That's right. You need the systems because you want to save yourself stress, time, energy, and money.
And not only me, John, all of my team.
Sure.
Right.
And the company itself, right? The company itself.
And my clients, because if one person doesn't have the answer and they say, oh, I got to talk to the next person, then, oh, I got to talk to the next person, my client's getting frustrated.
Yep.
That's no good.
I'd love to hear more on this. Decisions should be made at the lowest level. That is so simple and so difficult to do, is to have clarity in your organization to equip other people at the lowest levels and the frontline workers to be able to make decisions. If I was being coached by you, regardless of the product or service, or maybe that matters, but I'm curious, if I was being coached by you, like, man, where do I start? And I get clarity, I get like that, but like, okay, what more? Like, where do I start? I love that idea. I want decisions to be made at the lowest level. Absolutely. Pete, like, help me out.
So take the next decision you need to make as the owner. What is it? I mean, how many decisions do we make every day? Well, that's what we do as owners, right? We're decision makers. But it's been proven time and time again that there's only so many decision making abilities that you have in a given day to make good quality decisions. So from that side of things, you want to be working on the highest quality decisions. When you're talking about bringing them down into the lower levels, that's the idea of setting up those processes, Rich. That's the idea of, okay, well, if somebody I'll go back to my shoe store. If somebody brings in a pair of shoes because they, whatever, it's the wrong size, didn't work. Well, why do I need to be involved in that as the owner? I don't need to stick my nose in that. I need to equip my salesperson at the cash to be able to deal with that with a process that's going to allow that customer to walk out of the store with a smile on their face.
Yep.
And frankly, I don't ever care. Like, I don't need to know that as the owner of the business. I just need to know that that customer left happy.
Yep.
Right? So, do I look at returns in our stores? Yeah, I absolutely do. Am I involved in returns in the stores? Here's how I do it, Rich. If somebody comes in with a box and I happen to be there, I don't take that customer, and my team knows that. The salesperson takes that customer and deals with it, because frankly, I'm not the best on the point of sale system, and all the stuff that goes around, oh, they've returned it. And I probably don't know the story. They've returned it twice, and it's for grandpa, and we've tried 3 different shoes, and blah, 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 whatever the case is. It's like, they're talking to the wrong person anyway. They might as well be dealing with the person that's doing this every single day, that knows the answers, that can get them the right stuff at the time, knows if we have stuff in another store, all of the different things. It's going to be dealt with better just by that person who's in the know.
Are there some?
I was just going to say, Rich, that kind of reminds me, of one of the old adages that we've always been taught, which is, don't answer questions to problems. Encourage them to seek out solutions, right? In terms of somebody comes to you with a problem, hey, boss or owner, how do I do this? You're like, well, that's a great question. Why don't you go talk to the sales manager, because they're in charge of the POS system, and teach people how to fish. As opposed to always having the answer. Way too many times the entrepreneurs, I feel, try and have the answer. They try and jump to the to the point of having that response, that knee-jerk reaction to solve it. And you said something earlier too that played into Rich's question, which is the ability to just release authority, release the fact that you need to know it all. I have a business existing today that occasionally when I'm in, people will come up to me and ask me questions. And one of the benefits I have is just I usually don't have the answer. And so people start coming to me and ask me the questions because they know I don't have the answer. They'll go to the front desk or they'll go to the right people. So, but it's true, Rich. Your question was very well posed, which is, how do you then, create that culture in your business to have the decisions go down to the lowest level and have the ego and ability to just kind of not be in the store every day?
One of the things I have a question for you, Pete, is are there paradigms that you teach the entrepreneurs who you coach to pass on to others? And I'll frame the question up a bit more since it sounds ambiguous as I hear myself talk. We're talking about processes and systems.
Yeah.
And in my experience in coaching, working with a process and a system is often really good when we can get the entrepreneur to slow down and filter what they're doing through the lens of a process and tweak a process. Yeah. Same thing with systems. What I've also found is if we can change a mindset, or if we could change a paradigm that they're approaching something with, the systems and processes kind of automatically change themselves because they're approaching their business or their life or financials or people differently. So what I'd love to hear from you are just some of the foundational paradigms about business that you feel every business owner should have to filter decisions through.
I don't really, I have a whole set of frameworks and different things that I use, and I'm happy to share this with you and your listeners. I've got one called the one-page prop, and that's a tool that I came up with, and it's not dissimilar to a bunch of others that are out there, but essentially it's around this framework of so when we talk about simplifying entrepreneurship, I love one-page tools. I've created a ton of them. And when I'm thinking about anything, I grab whatever one-page tool I need in order to think through what I need to do in order to get my thoughts out onto paper so that I can give them enough justice to determine whether I want to move ahead or not. So from that side of things, the one-page prop really starts off with purpose. What is the purpose of what I'm trying to figure out right now? Okay. And it could be something as simple as, I want to, it could be maybe I want to change my point of sale system. It could be I want to change my scheduling system. It could be something real simple like, do we want to run an event next week or something like that? I mean, a variety, anything. What's the purpose? And then the next part, the R, is result. What is my deemed result? And why does it matter? And from that perspective, you take it down to the O, which are the obstacles. What are the obstacles that I'm going to face with the purpose that I have and the result that I want? Now that I know that with more clarity, we go back to clarity. Now that I know that, I'm starting to understand it a little better, and I can start listing out what those obstacles are. And the last one on the sheet, so it's 4 parts in the sheet. The last one on the sheet is the plan. Now that I know the purpose, the result, and the obstacles, what are the systems and plans that I want to put in place? And once I do that, and I just jot them all down like freehand, and then I go back after that, and I typically, when I look at the plan, then I number them in priority or in sort of time frame, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They wouldn't be that way when I wrote them down because I don't like to write them down in that sort of priority because it slows and sort of it just stunts your sort of flow of the sheet. So I just write them all down. I go back, I number them later. And the other thing I do is now, beside the plan, I put usually initials, which is who can help me. Again, getting back to the accountability side of things, whatever those things are, whatever are in the plan, it's like, okay, I need to talk to so-and-so in marketing about this. I need to talk to so-and-so in finance about this. I need to talk, I need to talk to an outsourced partner about this because we're going to have to get some, whatever it is. So basically aligning that in a one-page sheet gives me sort of a moment of clarity to determine whether or not I even want to make this thing happen and when.
Mm.
So from that perspective, I use that sheet a lot, I think, Rich, to help me with, with those thoughts. Because as leaders, what do? We talked about it earlier. We make decisions. So anything that we can do to clarify decision making at our level of business, because our level is not as plannable, structured, systemized, all of those things that we were talking about when you start unloading all of those lower decisions, ours is not.
I
And
love
that's what
that.
we
That
get.
sure feels like a gift from you on that one-page prop. And one of the things I'm really enjoying about our conversation is your ability to make things really simple. And they're simple, yet they have a level of depth in considering and working that particular, whether it be principle or or system that you put out there. So yeah, I have that written down on one-page prop. It's something I'll practice over the next week or so and see how that works for me. And that again, just an example of something really simple and really useful.
I'll provide you guys a link so that anybody who's listening can download it.
That
That's
sounds
generous.
great. One of the things that one of our guests had talked to us about earlier this year was taking a blank sheet of paper for 20 minutes a day and just think. It seems to me like your one-page prop incorporated into that 20-minute think time could be very practical for myself, in addition to others who are just sitting down and thinking, I want this result. How am I going to get there?
Yep.
So I really love the way you threw that out there. I also have to ask, because we brought it up earlier in the conversation, and Rich is very infrequent that Rich finds a book that he does not know a lot about. And you said, Rich, you do not know what the Eighth Habit is. It
I've
looks
never
like it's
heard of it.
a Covey book. Can you tell us what that book's about? Because it's one of the ones you have pointed out.
To be quite frank, it's probably been 5 years since I've read this book, and you've caught me, and I can't remember what the Eighth Habit is.
All right. Well, we have a challenge for all of us then.
I literally flipped this book over because it's one that I was thinking, I got to reread this. I was thinking about rereading it through the Christmas holiday here. And I flipped it over the other day because I was just redoing my books. So I can't remember what is the Eighth Habit. And I mean, I could find it for you here in a couple of seconds,
Pete,
but I don't want to waste our valuable time.
Let me bail you out on that in a genuine way.
Yeah.
You have so many frameworks that you've given us over the course of the conversation. No disrespect to the author. It's a very famous author who wrote that, right?
Yeah, Stephen Covey, love him. Yeah.
But I'm very confident if there was something wonderfully simple and useful in that, you'd remember it. And I wonder if it's not a testament to the book that it doesn't provide a tool that is simple and useful enough for a mind like yours to remember. And that's more of a statement about the book than it is you.
Well, I will abstain from comment there, but I appreciate that.
So Pete, you have a podcast yourself, obviously called Simplifying Entrepreneurship Podcast. Yep. Talk to us about what that podcast is about and what types of conversations you have on it.
Well, I'm a relatively new podcaster. I just started that one middle of 2021. So I finished my first season, 29 episodes, and then I'm doing right now just third episode of a 4-part mini series of creating your best year ever. So, and there's all kinds of tools within that too, like a planner and all sorts of different things around. When we talked about creating the life that you want out of your business, that's what this mini series is all about this month. So this month really is in December. Season 2 is really just me talking around those frameworks. But the first season, the first 29 episodes, I'm interviewing guests, and we're going through a lot of these things that we've been talking about today, and making your better life. We talk about team, we talk about marketing, we talk about leadership, we talk, all the different people that I've been able to interview. So many cool people. Some of my coaches, which are super cool too. I'm happy to have them on board. But lots of different specialists from all over the world and really have enjoyed some of that stuff. I try to keep my podcast short, like 20 minutes or under, so that
Yep.
they can listen to it on a commute to work or whatever the case. And we always try to have actionable content, because that's one thing. It's one thing to have all these books.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have all these podcasts, but if you're not going to do anything,
Yep.
I call it ideate, postulate, and activate. So it's good to ideate, it's good to postulate, it's good to contemplate all those things and think about them. And, like we've been talking about today, think about these things. But if you don't add that P at the end of the one-page prop, the plan in order to activate things, it's just thoughts.
Yep.
And
yeah,
then,
and certainly that's, as you think of it, there's no better time than right now to really be figuring out how can you have your best year ever in 2022 and take all the garbage, I'll call it, and just put it aside, right?
Yeah.
Whatever's going on in your business, whatever's going on in your life, whatever's going on, get clarity in that one thing maybe that you're going for. And I love the fact that you have this little mini series that's not just pumping people up, but giving people actionable things they should be and could be doing to have their best year ever. So I'll definitely be looking that up. That sounds like a great 4-part episode, and we'll make sure that our guests have a link to that as well. Really appreciate you coming on and talking with us today, and all the tools. And I think, as Rich said it very well, the gifts that you've given us through some of these simplified acronyms and tools and Venn diagram that we can all take back and make sure that we're applying in our lives, and or reach out to you for more. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a real pleasure.
Please stick around for a few more minutes while Rich and I break down this episode.
Decisions should be made at the lowest level, Pete says. And oh my gosh, do I think that is just powerful. And when I had asked him, so how do you go about that? He's like, simple. What's the next decision you have to make? I think that it is simple. And John, I just felt like, as I even said on the podcast to Pete, like everything he talked about, he just made things more simple.
Yeah. Part and parcel to that was just release authority. Your job is not to master your product or service, he said. Your job is to master entrepreneurship, leadership, communication, ownership, not to master your product or service. If you're trying to master your product or service and do everything and make all the decisions, then who's going to fill your footsteps, right? Who's going to backfill your business and become leaders and managers and operators in your business so that you can step out of your business and start working on your business, not in your business. So I really love the way that he took some of his lessons, in my opinion, from his franchising roots and successes and failures he saw in franchise systems to develop his own systems, which, again, I love that acronym that I had never heard, nor have you before.
No.
By having systems, the acronym of systems saves you stress, time, energy, and money. Well, how many entrepreneurs would raise their hand up and go, you know what? I got a little bit of stress. I'm always busy. I'm tired every night because I've gassed myself and I wish I had more money. That's 99% of entrepreneurs. So by creating these systems that he talks about, and he gave us a lot of different ideas and one-pagers, like his one-page prop. Excuse me.
Yeah.
That was a really good one. It seems to me that not only has he simplified things, and this is what you said that I agree with, it's simplified at the initial level, but then there's depth within each of those different acronyms and steps.
I thought it was cool that he followed some of his own advice about empowering people to make decisions. And one of the ways that he followed that advice was working for one of the bosses he hired, which is like, it's almost a mind bender when you think about it. I'm going to work for one of the bosses I hired. It's almost like the show. What is the show that's about?
Undercover Boss.
Undercover Boss. Thank you. Where it's like they're working for the boss they hired, but that's more to like find out, are things going well or not. Yeah. He's doing it from a perspective of showing that employee, you are in charge, you are responsible. The decisions you make are going to be followed through on, even if it's me. I'm curious, John, if that's anything you've dabbled in or anything you would dabble in or do in your business, is be instructed by one of the people who you hired for a day or a period of time.
Absolutely. I love that. To me, Rich, that's servant leadership. I love that. If you look at servant leadership at the core of it, it's taking the org chart and flipping it upside down. Your people don't work for you; you work for them, really. And he referenced this a lot. The accountability chart we have in our organization would dictate that if I'm filling in for the sales rep, I'm no longer the owner in that particular moment. I am the sales rep. And to me, it's less of an ego thing for me, Rich, in terms of I am the owner. Therefore, even if I'm the sales rep, you still work for me. It's less about that. It's more about how are you going to develop the leadership in your team if you don't allow them to lead. But then also, if you're going to master entrepreneurship, master leadership, you want your people to know that you're also going to walk the walk. And if you're saying this is the way we operate, well, then you operate in that methodology as well. You don't come in and override things because you're the owner. So therefore, we're going to change everything now. So I did learn, in the around 2011 or 12, this whole concept of servant leadership when I was forced to actually work for a logistics company with no logistics background. I had to understand that at the end of the day, I didn't know a lot of the answers. So I had to actually work for the people that literally reported for me in terms of helping them, get the things that they wanted to get accomplished in the way they wanted to get it done. And that kind of taught me a lot about really that servant leadership. It strikes me that Pete, very much falls into that servant leadership mold.
Yeah, it's interesting as you were saying that, and I was listening and kind of reflecting on, boy, have I done that? And in my current role, the people who I coach, it's literally like on a volunteer basis that they allow me to coach them.
Sure.
Because they're not, the number of people that I coach are not all direct reports of mine. And to some degree, I actually feel those who are direct reports have an option, whether they allow you to coach or not. But I tell them, you're actually the coach in our relationship and I'm the player. And I need you to tell me where you want me to play. Because I'll play anywhere you want. And, I'm not a big sports guy, but it's like, you want me to play on the defensive side of the ball? I can do that. I can play on offense. Like, where do you want to put me in? And it is this listening to them and servant leadership. And the only things that we can influence our people on are the things that they desire to be influenced on, typically. The other side of that coin is assertive leadership, and you have to point things out when you see them. But generally, we should be serving the needs of our people, and it sounds like Pete is a great example of that.
Yeah, and also I'll say this, when Pete goes to be the sales rep and acts like the sales rep, not like the owner, and works for that manager at that particular time, I'm sure there are times he has to hold himself back because he sees something that as the owner isn't exactly the way he would want to. And that's a moment in time where an owner needs to really, roll their tongue 7 times in their mouth and go, okay, I can either influence my ownership here or let the team develop and grow and learn. And the one thing I think Pete has really, really figured out is how to work on his business and not work in his business by creating these systems, by creating these accountability pieces, by not just jumping in everywhere. And he's also figured out how to not even be a manager or operator in his business, to be more of a chairman of the business who, he'll come in and help if there's need help for sure, but he's going to come in and do it as a sales rep and then get back out when the sales rep comes back in and go back to working on his overall businesses. And so when he talks about, clarity, which is the 3 things in the Venn diagram, right? You need mindset, momentum, and mastery in order to develop clarity, confidence, and community to become an empowered entrepreneur. I think way too many people have this misconception that entrepreneurship is 14, 16-hour days, getting paid last, working your butt off to grow something, and putting all of your energy into it, versus what I think he has done really well starts with clarity. You ask them, what's the secret sauce? Well, what do you want? And if you want a freedom as an entrepreneur, then you got to build these systems in your business so that you can have what you really want the business to provide you in the first place.
Yeah, and it's interesting to highlight where you've brought the conversation, and we can bring it to an end from the beginning of where Pete started. It's, what do you want out of your life? And once you get clear on that, change your business to fit that.